it's time for another reading update. Hey there, it's Mitzi. Welcome to my channel. Today I just wanted to give you a quick update on what I've been reading this past week. I think this is what I read this week. The reason I say that is because ever since November started, I mean, what day is it? I don't even know right now. It's like, it's just all blended together and it's crazy. I mean, it's just crazy around here. It's a good crazy. I'm enjoying it because the holidays are coming up. I'm getting ready for that. I've been decorating and working on all the Christmas things that are coming up. We have Thanksgiving coming up in a week or so, and I'm just ready for it. So anyway, with all that going on, I'm trying to keep up with what I've read each week because, of course, I'm reading a whole bunch too. I am participating in, first of all, of course, the More Montgomery Challenge. There is still time to participate if you're interested. We started that in September, and we will finish that the last day of November because that is actually Ellen Montgomery's birthday. And so we'll finish it then, and then the following Sunday, I can't remember what the date is, I'll put it up here. That following Sunday, we will have a live on my channel. Elizabeth from Lizzie Faye Loves Books and I will be on here live, and we're going to celebrate what we've read for the More Montgomery Challenge. So we will be also giving away some things. Elizabeth has several books. She collects all kinds of Ellen Montgomery things, and so she will be giving away several books. So make sure that you use the hashtag More Montgomery Challenge, and you tag me or comment or tag Elizabeth to let us know that you're reading for that. And again, there's still time if you haven't to participate and join us for that live stream the first Sunday in December. So anyway, I'm participating in that still, but this week I didn't finish anything for that one. And then I am participating in the HISTORATHON, and I read 2 books for that. Then I'm also participating in something I don't think I've talked about. There's this club. I have joined this reading club. It's a reading group here on BookTube, and it's called FOMO, Fear of Missing Out Club. And I just love it because it's all those books that you didn't read when they were popular, or you think everybody on the planet has read them but you, that kind of thing. And so there's a whole list, and so every month there will be a book that will give you another chance to read that with a group of people and discuss it. So the first one for that was I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. This was the first one in our group, and I will leave information about that below in case you want to join us, because there's lots of books. You can look at the list of books and see if there's one that you want to read with us as well. But this was the first one, and I definitely wanted to read it because I've had this on my shelf for way too long. Now, this is I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith, and it is a coming-of-age story. And I started this years ago and put it down. I didn't think it was for me. When I started it, I don't know if I just wasn't in the mood for it. I mean, the beginning of it is really interesting. The first sentence is like, okay, what's going on? Because it says, I write this sitting in the kitchen sink. And it's like, okay, why are you sitting in the kitchen sink? You know? So, and it goes on from there. It's very quirky. There's a lot of quirky characters. It's really different. And they live in this crumbling castle, this dilapidated house. So that all interests me because that is just what I look for in a book. A coming of age. I like coming of age stories. And I like the crumbling castle aspect. And there's also the main character's father is a writer. And I love anything about writing and books, of course. So you would think that this would be something I'd already read. Anyway, years ago I started it, and for some reason it just did not capture my attention, and I never picked it back up. So when the FOMO Club announced this is the first book, I said, yes, I'm going to join in. And I must say, I really enjoyed this time. From the beginning, I was like, okay, why didn't I like this before? Because I really did enjoy it. It had great characters that were super interesting and quirky. Everybody in here is interesting. And the castle is interesting because it is like this rundown castle. They just don't have any money, and they're trying to live in this grand castle or what once was a grand castle, and now it's kind of just crumbling around them. But at the same time, there's this sort of romantic element to the landscape and the castle itself. So anyway, with this book, I'm not going to say too much about it because it is just a coming of age story. It's about a young girl and her relationship with her sister and her stepmom, her dad, and a couple of other people that help out in the house, as well as two Americans who come to stay, and they become a big part of this story as well. I did enjoy this. I loved the writing style of Dodie Smith. I know Dodie Smith wrote 101 Dalmatians. I'm sure she wrote that. If you've read anything by Dodie Smith, let me know, because I do want to read 101 Dalmatians now, and I really like her writing style. So I'm interested, if you've read anything by her, let me know, because I do want to check out more of her writing. And the plot was super interesting. I couldn't put it down. I read it the first week of our challenge, which this is for all the whole month. I haven't talked in the Discord about it yet because I was giving everybody time to finish, but I couldn't put it down. I thought it was a quick read, a fun read, but it is a coming of age, and I do enjoy coming of age stories, but I am at a point in my life, I think, sometimes the young adult angst stories kind of get on my nerves. The things that they're worried about, and I don't know, their thought process can sometimes sound more like whining than anything else. And I know that depends on the story and depends on what kind of mood I'm in, to tell you the truth. But I've gotten to where I don't like those quite as much. So I think if I would have read this when I was a lot younger, I would have said this was a favorite book. But now that I am much older, I loved it, but I really didn't care for the main character as much as I wanted to. She's interesting and she's got a lot coming at her, but I felt she was selfish. I just thought that a lot of the things that she was doing, and it's told in like she's writing her own story. She's writing in her journal or diary, and that's how it's told. And every day she records a little bit more, and so you learn about this family through her thoughts. And I love that kind of story. But as you're learning all her innermost thoughts and feelings and dreams, some of them seemed selfish to me. And that might just be me and the mood I was in, but that was why I just couldn't root for her all the way through. However, as I said earlier, it is a great story. It had a great plot, and I loved Dodie Smith's writing, so I will be picking up more. I did give it 4 stars, even though the main character wasn't my favorite character to root for. I did give it 4 stars, so that's saying a lot, because even with the main character not being my favorite, I did enjoy the reading of this book. And I want to thank the FOMO Club for picking this one for the first one, because it's been on my shelf for so long. And I don't know about you, but when I have those, there's certain books that are on my shelf right now that are just staring at me. And when I come in this library, I'm like, why have I not read you yet? So it's when you have these readathons and these reading clubs, just take advantage of those, because they really help you get those books read. And then you have a whole group of people who are discussing it along with you. It's a great time to read those. So anyway, I really enjoyed it. And thank you to the FOMO Club for recommending that as our first read. Then I read for the HISTORATHON. Now, I've already read one book for the HISTORATHON, The Robe, which I loved and highly recommend. I will leave a link to that review below, because I talked about it in my last update. But the first prompt for HISTORATHON was Lost. You were to choose a book with Lost in the title. So I chose Lost in Darkness by Michelle Greep. And I keep saying Greep. If that's wrong, let me know. But I have read some Michelle Greep before, and I've enjoyed it. So I have several on my shelf actually right now to read. And so I had wanted to get to this all year long, and I loved this book. This takes place in, I think it was 1815. Yep, 1815. And it's about a girl who, her father dies, and she is a journalist. She's a traveling journalist, which was interesting in itself, considering that it is the 1800s. But she goes back to when her father dies and to help her brother, because he is going to have this very serious brain surgery. And again, this is 1815 when this happens. So her brother has some sort of genetic disease or a disorder or some kind of disease. I really wasn't sure what it was that he had, but it makes him grow very large. And I've heard of people having something like that, but he grows extremely quick and he grows really large. So he's like 7 feet tall in this book. Not only that, but he's also had an injury as a child, and his face is scarred. So it makes him like a monster. And he just, doesn't go out much and do anything. I think he's like a sailor, and he stays at, on the seas, but he doesn't go out into the community much because people are afraid of him because of the way he looks, which is horrible. I mean, that is just such a horrible experience for this person. Of course, the main character, Amelia, I think's her name. Yeah, Amelia loves her brother, and she wants to help him as much as she can. So his father, before he died, had set up this doctor to do this surgery, and the doctor promised that it was going to change the man's life. They were going to be able to fix him. Okay, so that's the premise of the story, which is super interesting. What made it even more interesting is the doctor himself, because this is a nod to Frankenstein, and Frankenstein is one of the best books I've ever read. I read it, I don't know, several years ago, and I'd always thought that Frankenstein was some kind of weird monster cult, kind of what you see on, on TV and in the movies, and it's not that at all. There is so much more to Frankenstein, the book, than what you see as the green monster, walking around like a zombie. So anyway, after reading that book, I was just blown away by the way that it talks about just humanity and how we are responsible for our actions. And the monster in that, the doctor, Frankenstein. So there is a doctor that is similar to that in this story, and he has these secrets. There's these weird things going on, like he's got these body parts in jars. So there's these weird things going on, and he has an assistant, a new doctor who's trying to start up his own practice, but he doesn't have the money or the experience yet, so he's working for this doctor. So it's the two of them that are going to be doing the surgery on this brother. So the story goes on from there, and I'm not going to say too much more about it, but it is a lot of Frankenstein elements. So if you are interested in Frankenstein, this does has a lot of Gothic elements. It was actually a good time to read it, because in the fall, I love reading those dark Gothic kind of stories. Now, it's not scary or anything like that, but it kind of hints at a lot of Frankenstein. Actually, there is a cameo appearance of Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, in the story itself. So that made it interesting too. And the topics and the way that it's handled is really kind of exploring the same thing that Frankenstein explores. So I'm going to stop there so that I don't spoil this. But anyway, it was a great read. I loved the story. I loved the Gothic elements. I loved that it was set in 1815 when they were trying to explore all these things about medicine and surgery. There's a lot of that talked about in here. And there was a little bit of mystery behind it, because it was like, in the beginning, you're trying to figure out, okay, what is this doctor up to? So I like that too. I love Michelle Greep's writing. So if you have a Michelle Greep that you've read recently that you can recommend, I do have a couple on my shelf I hope to get to, but if you have a favorite, let me know, because this was great. And again, that fulfilled Lost in the title for the HISTORATHON. And so I have read The Robe and Lost in Darkness, and I had two more that I wanted to read for HISTORATHON, one of them being The Witch of Blackbird Pond, and I finished that as well. I don't know why I have never read this. I've known about this story forever. I mean, it's been around for a very long time. It is a Newbery, and I'm trying to read all the Newbery books. I am so glad I read this, but it was nothing like what I thought it was. I mean, if you look at this cover, you see, you know, it looks like dark, and it's called The Witch of Blackbird Pond. So you think, okay, this is going to be a little creepy and dark. It really isn't. There are some dark themes in it because it is set around the witch trials. And there is what they call a witch, but she's not a witch. There's a person that is ostracized from the rest of the group because she's a Quaker, and she lives at Blackbird Pond. And the young girl in the story befriends her. The young girl starts out, she is from Barbados, and her mother and father had died, so she had been raised for several years by her grandfather. Her grandfather raised her as an independent person. And even though she was a girl, she was able to read what she wanted to. Her grandfather taught her to just be independent. And she lived a really free life in Barbados. And she enjoyed the weather and the beautiful nature around her in Barbados. But when her grandfather dies, they lose everything. So she packs up her trunks and she sets sail to America because her aunt lives in America. She gets there, they didn't even know she was coming, but she gets there and she's totally different because these people, I think they're Puritans. That's how it seems. I'm pretty sure they're Puritans. They dress all in gray, you know, there's no color to what they wear. She comes in with all these trunks of clothing and materials, and they live this totally different type of life. And what she reads is different. The things that she has done in Barbados is really against their belief system. And so there is this contrast there, which makes her seem to be more like a witch. Because at one point, at the beginning when she's on the ship, she dives into the water to rescue this doll for this little girl. Well, one of the signs that you're a witch is you float. And so she can swim, and none of them can. So they think already this young girl, there's something different about her. So at that point, you are a little nervous for the girl as she moves to America, because you know that she's going to have a struggle with how she's been raised and these fears of witchcraft that are going on during this time, as well as their religious beliefs not being exactly aligned with hers. So all that made it a very interesting read. However, it's not as dark and creepy as some of the other things I've read that are set around the witch trials. Again, this is for a child. It's a middle grade and it's a Newbery. But I did like how it was handled, because those things are hinted on here, but it made the story is more of a hopeful, encouraging story, because as the girl, you know, learns about the family and befriends people in the community, she helps them see things differently. So that part of it was encouraging without, you know, doing anything that's against their religion really, but helps them see things a little different. Befriending the Quaker woman who is considered a witch. All those things are dealt with not in a scary, horrifying way that a lot of books would do during this time period, but more in a hopeful, encouraging way. So I really enjoyed that about it. And I love the main character in this story as well as some of the other characters too. Elizabeth George Spear. Did I say that? This was written by Elizabeth George Spear. I know she wrote The Bronze Bow as well, and that was on my list to read this year, which I hadn't read yet. And that one won a Newbery. She's also written several other middle grade books that I am interested in. If you've read any Elizabeth George Spear, again, let me know that, because I'm always looking for more great reads. And she really can write a book. I really enjoyed the way that she told this story. So those are some great reads. I enjoyed all three of those. The Witch of Blackbird Pond, Lost in Darkness, and I Capture the Castle were all I think I gave every one of those books 4 stars. So all of those were great reads. I enjoyed them. And I read 2 more for Historathon, which I was very pleased with. Again, I'm reading a couple of nonfiction right now that I can't wait to tell you about, because they've been great. I have one more that I wanted to read for Historathon, which is The Nature of Fragile Things by Susan Meissner. So I hope to start that one hopefully this week. I'm sure I can get it done by the end of November. So I'm excited for that one as well. Are you participating in any of these readathons? Let me know that in the comments, or just let me know what you're reading and what are your plans for the upcoming holidays too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.